Free thought revolution. We coming up on 250, baby. 250, 250! For y'all that don't quite understand what 250 is, well, we coming up on 250 years of America being great. So, peace upon you. Bless. How you doing? Let's jump in. Well, actually, hold on. Pause. I'll give you a little step back real quick. Because, we're back in the studios. And studio hasn't quite grown near as much as we had hoped. And so podcast hadn't been up and fresh as we had hoped. And so what had happened was, and yes, this is what had happened was, I got 4 kids. And school just ended. So I got promotion, graduation, promotion, awards. A partner just finished her school, so they like all of that condensed into one space. Plus, I grew old, so I had to celebrate a bit, enjoy the gifts that I have, my kids, that allow me to feel young. And I broke my knee in the process. So we had to take some space, take some time, and really sit with ourselves, for ourselves, with ourselves, to ensure that when we drop back in here, we really give y'all what you need, what you want, and what your soul and mind need for that sustenance. So we talking today, you're gonna love this, American identity. Ancestors' footsteps to 250. And that's a really, really deep conversation, especially today when we talk about birthright citizenship only being acknowledged and legally upheld. So yeah, you get born here, you're a citizen. But what does that mean? So really trying to have a discussion, a conversation with folks about what that means to really hold an American identity. Well, it made me start trying to figure out who I am. What's my ancestry? How did I get here today? Because even me being born here, waking up in this amazing country, allows me only an opportunity to look back. Because first I have to look back to figure out how I'm here, who I'm here, what I'm going to do when I start moving from this present moment into the future, or at least planting seeds for the future. So race don't exist. Said this before, been down that line, so I'm not going to go into it. But ancestry is significant. Ancestry is the ties that allow us to figure out the bonds to our culture of who we are, who our ancestors were. When I say ancestors, that means a grandmother that's died, a great grandfather. Those individuals, it allows us the opportunity not just to see who they were and how they might represent us in looks, birthmarks, namesake, but how part of how they survived, carved and created pieces of who we are today. The little wrinkles and crackles of how they navigated and created those footsteps are who we are today. And my first step, man, I'm black. African American, but trying to find out what tribe, what country, what geographic region my African ancestral roots come from was a big impetus in finding out all these different things. So yeah, I'm black, but my ancestry runs through Cameroon. Cameroonian baby. So now I have an identity of where dances, language, faith, different practices. I now understand where they came from and where they may have started from. But in that trek, I found out that I have a large chunk of Irish. I have a large trunk of native indigenous. I'm black, Seminole, and Cherokee. I'm Cameroonian. I'm Irish. And I'm a bunch more and a melting pot of diversity of cultural ancestry. And it's really carved out a lot of things. It's funny because now that I see the different pieces of where my roots have come from, I understand now why we be eating boiled cabbage. And why as a kid that was something that popped up in the kitchen quite often. Why what is that? The crumbled meat and eggs. Like there was a lot of Irish cuisine that lived within our kitchen, a whole lot. And there were a lot of African seeds that were living within our kitchen, a whole lot as well. One of the things that didn't live in our kitchen, didn't really even live in our household, my native side, something else I lost. So when people ask me why I'm trying to trace back, why I'm trying to learn how to speak Arabic, why of all the languages, well, Arabic is close enough-ish to something representing roots. Y'all gave me English. I've perfected English, but I feel a disconnect. My Irish Gaelic, it's not there either. So much of who we are comes from back then, and ironically, here's the ironic part, because there's a way we can really track back how we got here, and for me, well, it was death marches, and then those that survived the death the death march after the enslavement and being, given to somebody who was going to do the death march, we went to these ports where we were continued to get abused and traumatized. And in the ports, we got on these blocks, and these cats bought us, and then they put us in these small, teeny tiny boxes, cages, underneath boats. We went across this long, months long journey where a whole bunch more horrid stuff happened. Then we landed in America, stood on top of a stock block, got sold into some more, right? The flip side of that is my native indigenous brothers and sisters. Well, they were being wiped out so that us brothers could come in and work the land because we knew the land too well. We just run off in peace. They ain't never catching us again. How they gonna catch us in our home? And in that slavery that started in 1619, please get your stuff correctified. This ain't it ain't no agenda. It's just trying to rectify history and the lack of where it sits. So, yeah, there were some Irish brothers and sisters there, but most of my Irish ancestors came over after being persecuted later on, and trying to escape that. And then when they got here, since they were one of the first to actually arrive, outside of those that colonized this land, well, they got terrified and terrorized. Those are the stories. Those are the stories that have been passed down. Not just through family members. Those are the stories we hear in the books. The stories we see in the movies. That's the stories we read in the encyclopedias of America. Those are the facts. So when we discuss these things, when we look at these things, my footsteps, how I got here, all the righteousness that makes me feel like I belong because of the hard fought survival just to make it here, man, you can't tell me that I'm not American. Or does that make me just a visitor? The child of a visitor. You're going to have to give me 1 second because, there's forgettance that I am recording a podcast for Ancestry. So I'm going to have to get some dogs out of this mug real quick because I ain't got time for that. So give me 30 seconds and forgive and excuse. I'll be right back. Out, guys, out, go, out, go. Born of Osiris, go. People get so excited in life because of how much it is and how hard it took to get here. We often forget the surroundings that have going on. So when we talk about stories, let me give you a story. So, if I'm to embrace and hold to heart my blackness as the story and identity of how my Americanness is and goes and grows, well, so many of you white mother lovers, I really should not have much appreciation for, because y'all have put me and my ancestors here in a system that does not treat us like anything near human. As a matter of fact, y'all have continued to do an African genocide that started back in 1619 and has continued to 2026. And as we run it up on 250 years, I'm wondering when y'all gonna acknowledge it's been 400 plus years of y'all killing my people. We ain't really American. We ain't really citizens. When you get something in the news that says us, pops us about us, it says black citizen, black American, black person, police officer. Why that police officer ain't got no designation? Why we get designated? That designation is why we angry, because it's carried us for our entire life and put us in a system of straight certitude. Or carry my native indigenous side. And when looking at that, I hate all you. I might understand and empathize with the story of my Afro ancestor brothers, and I even understand that my native Hispanics, well, we really family half the damn time in other situations where we might not have been the same tribe that crossed across the borders that now say United States and Mexico. We were still family, we had tribal relations. So yeah, I got love for y'all, but everybody else, y'all need to get the out my land. This is my place. My ancestors were the first caretakers. My ancestors named these plants. My ancestors walked along the willows and had conversations with these cats. Y'all came here colonizing, and now we sit in reservations and dead spaces y'all can't even see exist. Then, if I, just embrace my Irish, well, this is my birthright. The religious texts have always talked about this. This new land has been a place of sanctitude and safety for us for ages. We just had to come here and claim it. There was nobody here before us. All y'all heathens and primitives was living like some. I don't even want to get down to discuss that, because then y'all gonna call me racist and all kinds of other stuff, because y'all don't even acknowledge how poor and broke y'all was talking about trading beads and stuff. We came here and elevated y'all. Yeah, we took some of y'all's land in the process, but that's all right. I mean, think of how much we gave you. You don't think we deserve something in the process? Those are the stories of my ancestors. Those are the stories of my walk here. Those are the stories of just me finding the space, a place to breathe, to wake up, to say, hi, hello, America. I'm Ramesses Satek. I haven't even gotten to the real founding. I haven't gotten to what happens and the pieces beyond that, because that's more stories that we carry, that we share, that we tell, that we harbor. And most of it, really, if you think about it, is we're children. Many of us now, especially, with all of this ruckus surrounding the world about, well, this cat may not deserve to be here. They need to go back home. Why don't you go back home? I've been here for 6 generations. Well, whatever. I've been here for 7. Yeah, but my ancestors was here. But like, we can go back and forth with all of this, and it's story after story after story. And the truth is, we're all looking for our story, our relevance, and it's becoming difficult, because as we're looking for our ancestry, we're also running across truths. Not truth, truths that have been hidden, deceptively covered, disguised, completely omitted, or written over for so long. 1419 2. Oh, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America, right? That cat didn't land in America. He landed in the Caribbean. And he technically wasn't looking for spices. That cat was, sought a commission by a bunch of rich folk back in the country that would pay for his boat to go explore the New World and bring back gold and jewels. I mean, when the facts of what you are being told, sold, and educated on don't line up with reality, at some point they crash, at some point they clash. And it's not looking outside because we're not trying to be American or we're not trying to be patriotic. We're part of the melting pot, the jambalaya that has a rich flavor everybody tastes, everybody gets to mix, and everybody gets to express themselves in a piece of the spice. So when you're finding them chasms and them stories, like, we talked about it when the Constitution first started, 1776. Was it? Or was that just when the war started and we didn't actually sign papers until, a year or two later? But more importantly, was the Constitution really this sanctified piece of documentation that carried out an American dream? Because when that document was signed, women who had any property lost it. And because of what it meant to be man, and yes, they really did mean man. They didn't have any of that man and woman. They didn't have the man, woman, non-binary. It was man. What it meant to be man, what it meant to be American, what it meant to be a citizen at that time was a rich, white, Anglo, Caucasian, however you want to say it, Christian. So technically, when we sign in this document, ain't none of us American citizens. And the thing is, citizens get to vote. So that was like the big key there, right? In order to vote, you got to be a citizen. If you ain't a citizen, well, you ain't getting nothing and nada because you can't get representation. So while we were fighting this war because we didn't want to be under this tyrant king without representation and sending all this money over there, well, us po folk down here still didn't get to be citizens because of the fact our skin wasn't white. Our religion wasn't Christian, and our pocketbooks wasn't chiming every time we walked down the street. So, being stuck in that time period, we were chattel. We were American chattel. And my Irish folks, well, some of them ended up getting their freedom after 7 years and became owners of their own American chattel, and my native brothers was trying to simply survive a genocide. And then we have the Civil War. And we decide that we can't have slavery no more. Do you know how bad that is? We lost thousands of folk, mostly poor, because there was an ability to buy yourself out of the war if you had enough pocket change. So there's a lot of my Irish brothers that were sent on the front lines to free my African brothers and sisters. So that hits, and I really am only pointing that stuff out and being so derogatory, direct, because it doesn't change much. So all that pain from being enslaved, all that pain of knowing we have no opportunity to rise up beyond whatever chattel level we are, means that we just stuck and we squashed. So civil war hits. Now we got reconstitution. We got reconstruction. We got a whole new world waiting, just sitting out there waiting, ready for us. And then the reality of Jim Crow's Southern codes hits and reminds us of our real roles. Shit. We're back in the same spot. We're still living through that same pain, that same misery, that same inability to become anything more. I mean, we free. But you know what happens in that freedom? In that freedom, and I'm gonna start going down the line of my Afro roots, and I'm gonna be more specific there because that's who I've been addressed as my entire life, and you'll understand when I start getting into this. Along with the fact I can't really touch and talk to my native roots. I'm just now getting into them. I'm just now touching it, just now finding out. That hurts. A whole piece of me, whole history of me that's been washed away in a trail of tears. So Reconstruction hits, we got civil rights, civil codes. No, we don't. We had legislatures all over the South that were filled with my African ancestor brothers and sisters. We was about to be representatives and start representing and make sure that the individuals and citizens that were living in the low class, that were black, poor, and anything else were able to finally get the opportunity to try to have happiness, or at least the pursuit of it. Jim Crow said no. Southern Code said no. They weren't going for none of that. And it was so bad that because now we're not property, now we're not important, now nobody has an insurance policy on us, now nobody's worried if something happens to us, because if something happens to us, well, that's just one more out of the way. So now they burn us down. Entire cities. Not just little houses, not just a person. They go and burn down entire towns and cities. Boston, Chicago, Tallahassee, Greenwood, New York. Uh, I mean, it's a lot of fire and a lot of death in my American walk to 250. But finally we get to that civil rights, and now we got real chance because they've desegregated. Like federal government enforced desegregation, so now they got to respect it. It takes them about another 10 to 15 years for it to actually take effect, especially nationwide, because even in California, there was segregation. They were busing. It was unwritten. You just knew better. And if you didn't know, you're going to get reminded real quick. And hopefully you survive the reminder. It was no different in the North, Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, Minnesota, like everywhere in the North that felt that they were much more respectable than the delineated lines of desegregation in the South. They just had them unwritten because they wanted to be a little bit more prim and proper and presentable to the common man. But we were still burned out of places in the North, too. We still had airplanes drop bombs on citizens. We couldn't buy into certain areas, certain housing. When we did, we'd get charged 3 times, 2 to 3 times what it would cost. And that money that you normally take and make sure that at least a portion of it goes back to reinvest in that community to make sure that, it's going to stay thriving. It's going to stay at least able to build upon itself. It's going to be able to sustain itself. No. I'm going to keep all that. And I'm going to move out to these suburbs, nice and far away from all you pestilence. Yes, all you pestilence. And, y'all just figure it out. You know what? Worst comes to worst, the government will come in and they'll build these big projects where y'all can go live, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You'll be okay. So my buddy, he bought a house a couple of years ago. I may have shared this story with y'all before, but he bought a house a couple of years ago, and in the process of that, he had to sign some paperwork, and in the paperwork it said that they could not sell a house to anybody that was not a good, upstanding Caucasian Anglo-Saxon Christian. This is in the past decade. Those lines of delineation of American citizenship and identity are still thriving today in places that really seem antiquated. But obviously, they ain't too old because they found their roots in systems that we still haven't been able to kick out. And when people ask, well, what's your identity? What's your American? What's your story? Well, this is all part of it. This is all part of that story that is carrying us, that is building us, that is putting us together in these places. And it's given us all so much pain. All so much pain. So now that we're up to the space where I'm born, I'm created, I'm crafted, and my father's Air Force, my aunt's Air Force, my grandfather is World War II vet, Navy, my uncle's Navy, my cousin is Marine, my cousin's Army, my cousin's Marines. No, sorry, Air Force, and then I have another Air Force. Actually, and then I have another Marine. I think I got my family line. Both sides. They served. They, they served. They protected. They stood for the American dream and ensured that each and every single one of y'all citizens was able to live it fully and freely. And I couldn't touch it for the life of me. I remember when I was in high school, I was 16, 17 years old, maybe. And this was at that time where you're supposed to be planning college, trying to figure out and discuss who you're going to become and start setting those little stones in order to do it. And my dad obviously was pushing Air Force. I was intelligent enough to be able to get in there. Obviously, I'm intelligent enough to be in there. I would hope y'all feel that way. So, yeah, go. Yeah, they'll do this. You have a lot. Nah, pops, I ain't doing it. Yeah, you should. Well, I'm not doing it. Why? What's your problem with that? Because in America, they don't treat me like a man. Well, what are you talking about? Well, it depends. If depending on where I go, I have to act a different way. I have to present a different way. I have to look a present a different way in order to make sure that I'm treated like a man. That's going to be anywhere you go. No, no. But see, if I'm going to go fight and sacrifice what may ultimately be my life, if not much of my body, my health for this country, I should be able to walk anywhere in this country and be looked at and be treated like a man. And he went on some other stuff and tried to further explain, and I simply said, nah. Because I watched the news, and there was a black woman who had just returned from Desert Storm. And she had her kid with her that she was excited to have with her, and they were walking down the street somewhere in the Northeast, and a woman came up to her and spat upon her while she was in uniform. So it was like 2098. Like it was between 97 and 2000. You know what I'm saying? So if if I can wear the uniform, if I can walk by with a limb missing, broken, mangled, if I can carry the terror and trauma of sacrificing any and everything it was for this great country and the citizens in it, and still be spat upon, am I American? Or is that just a disgruntled American spitting upon another American? The lines vary so much, so often. I could serve. I could have medals and awards for valor that I earned in all kinds of battles, from Desert Storm to Korea to whatever other next one's coming up. Afghanistan, we were there for 20 years too. Like, I could have all kinds of this stuff, but if I'm not wearing it, if I'm not actively doing it, do I get to claim that as part of my identity? Am I American? So here's my American story, my identity. I grew up, obviously, the child of a vet, retired. That cat did 22, 20 something years. Grew up in middle of ain't nowhere, California. Ain't nowhere. Just smack dab in the middle of ain't nowhere. 24,000 people and approximately, I would say, six at least Probably military personnel. Country. No snow. No. Arid, I guess. Lived on camp on base and base housing until fourth, fifth grade, something like that. So I like had the full experience. I remember going on base to the grocery store, um, the commissary. Sorry, they were a commissary, and you have to go through the gate, and you'd have to drive up, and you could either take a right, and you can kind of get right to them, or you could drive up and go further. And if you drove up and went further, you're going around this huge ring of flags of all the states in the United States, and then you have the great big American flag that has all of them all together and around this ring, and then you keep going, and then off to the right is the pool. Wait, wait, wait! The trumpet's going. Stop the car. All the soldiers are up standing and saluting. My dad was standing and saluting. We lived so close that when them things went off in the morning, or even after in the evening, we could hear it at home. And my dad would stop. Soldier, to the core. It was actually really nice because I could just run across the grass to a house full of buddies. I could run up to the other part of the grass to a house full of buddies. I could take off through the entire neighborhood, and I'd just be gone all day with me and a couple of kids, my brother and my sister, whatever, and we'd just terrorize the entire base housing. And with nothing happen to none of us except for we might slip in the gutter filled with the grass clippings, or we might bump and fall off a tree, but we ain't got to worry about nothing. We were at our own little basically town and hamlet sitting right there, and just kids just took off running and playing. And the only real notion that we knew it was based upon the fact that it was military was because our parents, all of us, would go to work wearing those same camouflage khakis. And they'd come home wearing the same camouflage khakis. And some of them would leave and be gone for months at a time. And we'd go to our buddy and we'd tell him, oh, I'm sorry, we know, we understand. And then when their dad comes back and our parent goes off, well, they there for us. So it was this little tight community that was built not necessarily upon how we were living the American dream, or we had patriotic families or veterans that were going, but because we were just a really small, tight-knit community that all had something very, very similar in common. My mom still talks to some of them to this day. I remember running around and seeing my buddy Matthew and his little tidy whities, and they were colored. Colored, I tell you. Do you know I didn't have colored draws? I wanted some colored draws. Like we were family. And as we started growing up and experiencing different part times of the American dream, I shared with my buddies that at 12, my fireworks celebrating July 4th would ever take it from me. They were taken by the police. We couldn't shoot fireworks. It's too dangerous. We might start a fire. So me, my brother, my two cousins, and my other three cousins lost our entire Tahoe trunk full of fireworks. And then we sat and watched as this family next to us, these two brothers, one of them was about 10, one of them was about 7, with pale skin, play with their entire trunk load of fireworks. That police officer shut the trunk on ours, walked past them, and drove off. My American dream identity is any time I'm driving, I'm fearful of the police. Anytime I enter a grocery store, a supermarket, a clothing store, anytime I enter a place of business, who is over my shoulder? It's funny, right? So you only go to the bank if you have business at the bank, right? You can't go to a bank for no reason. There's no point. You can't just, I'm browsing. I just, wanted to see your APR, see some of your savings accounts, just browse it. No, you can't do that. You go to the bank for business, otherwise you ain't at the bank. You know, cats get followed at the bank. The banks. Security harasses black folk at the bank as they go to deposit their money at the bank. You know who don't like that? The bank. But you know who's okay with that? The bank. Why? Because there's this notion and idea that it's the black folk that are going to be out there robbing from banks. For real, because if it was more than just the black folk, there'd be white folk just being followed. Or you just hear about this story of anybody who come in there with a hat being followed. Or anybody that walk in be coughing like, they being followed. But it's not that. So you got to understand the patterns. And you can't deny the patterns. And yes, I understand. Nobody, we human, nobody wants to believe the worst of life could be happening to someone at the hands of something that we all partake in, that we all have a part in, that we are all supposed to be able interconnected in. To hear that you getting treated differently and that no, that. Yes, it can be. And in order for y'all to be able to really start to see us, to feel us, to get an empathetic view of what America is like for us, you got to start opening your eyes to what America is like for us. We exist in history books that say we're better off for enslavement and that we wouldn't have been able to do anything, with complete disregard to the systems of inequity that continue to prevent us from being able to purchase homes and build wealth, or to be able to have communities where we, as a larger culture and community of folks, are able to sit safely. When you don't have safety, security, and those natural, normal things, well, then the whole rest of everything else is off. What are you going to build? You ain't got home to go to. So, that pain is bad. That's rough. That experience is off. It's hard. You know, I played football. I was a world class 5-star, not football playing athlete. I played football, but I wasn't all them things. But I got me a whole lot of country, male, American, all of that. I can't. So during football, my JV year, we're ending practice and we're going to break. And as we're breaking from practice, we all put our hands in, and then one of the captains says, "All right, on three, we're gonna break. Coon hunters on three. Coon hunters on three. 1, 2." For those of y'all don't understand, coon was a reference given to black folk because there was the predisposition. There was the idea that we had that black stuff around our eyes, couldn't see it, all that stuff. So I'm a junior or sophomore in high school, breaking a football break at summer football camp, and the captains of our team are telling us to break coon hunters, coon killers. And then, mind you, look at this. Me and my homie Jonathan, we're like, nah, we out. Nope, ain't doing it. Fuck that. We walked away. And we got in trouble. Think about that. Y'all'd be pissed and be throwing a fit if there was a pejorative used to define Jewish folks in that break. You'd be pissed and upset if there was a pejorative used in so many other terms and other ways. But again, that's what we do to our enemies. We give them pejorative names. We dehumanize so that when we go to war with them, we don't see them as humans, we see them as animals. A lot of what's been happening here in America is war against its citizens, its First Nation citizens, and then the people that imported to replace them. Y'all have this idea of a great replacement theory. There's always been a great replacement. Always. And yeah, it's still going on too. It's real easy to go on. And mind you, it's not necessarily based on race, culture, none of that stuff. The great replacement theory is based on who ain't following and listening. This is an empire. I don't care what your race really is. I need you to listen. No. I don't want to hear about none of that infighting about how you want your position raised. I don't care about your position. I don't care how you live in your life. You better be patriotic. You better be all about this empire. You better run shit how we say, or else. But it's always been that. The systems, the little caste, the divisions. Well, that is the greatest gift ever bestowed to America by one John Lynch. Sow division amongst the people and the masses by creating, or sorry, sow war. Actually, and division, yeah, it's the same thing. Amongst the masses by creating envy and jealousy. Hit the old against the young, the men against the women, the intelligent against the dumb, the light skinned against the dark skinned. Hit them. Hit them against each other. And they will never coalesce to rise up against you. That's what my ancestry has been fighting with, for, and against since. We're so intermixed in all of that. It's been so institutionalized into who we are. It is part of the larger story into how we move and act today. John Lynch blessed us. And so today, what are we, 4 days? I think we're 4 days, maybe 5 days from the 4th, from 250. And my ancestors' footsteps brought me here to this point today. And with all of those different experiences, getting jumped by police officers for walking down the street type stuff. Oh, yeah, that happened to me too. The being threatened to have the police called on me while walking down my own neighborhood taking pictures of houses because I was trying to write stories and some of these houses were just so wonderfully or quaint or they inspired. Well, I couldn't be there. They're calling the police. The fact that trying to go to the police oftentimes leads to more trouble than it does that you were in the first place because it's the police. Knowing that without an amendment. Think about that. An amendment. An amendment is a fix. Amendment is a recognition and acknowledgement of an error to what was originally there, so you amend it. We have two specific. There's more than just the two, but we have two predominant specific amendments to the Constitution, specifically to acknowledge and give us the ability to act upon citizenship. They ended slavery, and then they made the Equal Rights Clause. Gotta treat everybody the same. Can't be treating them different for gender, religion, sex. No, everybody the same. You have to acknowledge that if those amendments have to be there for my humanity to be acknowledged outside of the spaces of my own home where cats have to respect me, then that means that I'm not necessarily given the whole piece or the whole access to the American dream. It means that my identity technically is an amendment. I mean, and until 1964, my native roots didn't have anything. Amendment. I'm a living American amendment. My identity in America is an amendment. My ability to rise and thrive in America is an amendment. You're amending, but you haven't fixed. If somehow we get to watch birthright citizenship disrupted, we probably kind of go back to the original meaning of what it meant to be an American citizen. Maybe it changes just a smidge, maybe it don't, but y'all are the ones sitting with me watching these technocrats and faux billionaires with this imaginary money like it's Monopoly running around Boardwalk talking about new legislation to decide what is and what isn't. So if it did happen, well, guess what? I feel very confident it ain't going to be based on nothing to do with culture, race, ancestry. It's going to be based on, hey, what can you bring the government? Oh, you can give me $100 million? Well, I will definitely consider your suggestions. All you little broke peasants. Who are you again? I mean, we're there now. The picture's just getting a little bit clearer now. How that you want me to sing a song? I ain't gonna sing you that song, but like you see it, we feel it, we hear it. And as we're coming upon this 250, and we're talking about American identity, and we're talking about what it means to be American, and we're talking about all of these wonderful memories and how we can go make America great again while there's algae blooming in pools. Well, what do the footpaths and steps mean today for us? So I've read enough that I can be angry and angry all the time. And I tend to be kind of angry because it's a very frustrating thing to walk around as a native indigenous brother and seeing how the land that still speaks to you, sings to you, how it's being treated, how it's being destroyed, how it's being used as if it were some commodity. It tears at my soul as much as it does at the earth's life. When so much of the pieces of your ancestry are practices that you still carry today, because if you remember, my ancestors wove and braided maps, designs, colorful reminders, and seeds from home to make sure we carried it with us. When those things are here with you and you practicing those things, and all of those things are really, really rooted in the energy around you and the soil that you walk upon, in the practices of making sure that you ingratiate with all of them all the time, that you bounce with them, that you shake your booty to ground yourself so you don't get to places and spaces you shouldn't be. Not because you twerking, not because you want some dollar bills, but because the act of shaking one's core, center, sacrum, it really is a grounding effect on many of the different spaces within our chakras. Yeah, I know. Heathen talk. Heathen. Go try it. And let me know why when you hear certain drums you can't but help yourself. Can't help it. It's just something you got to. All of those different things make up who I am today. I was raised in a Christian church. Today I'm not Christian. Jesus, I love you. I love you, Jesus. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus does. But I'm not. Another hard tie because, not but three. Talk to my great granny. Three generations back. Well, that was used to take the original faith away. And I can still hear the flavors of it. So it's hard for me to go and be that. Does it mean I'm Christian? Or sorry, does it mean I'm not American? So I guess this is where we get to the point. Right? This is where we get to the point. After all those different stories, all those different pieces, all those different intricacies that make up me. Me. Just me. Individually. Not my sister, not my brother. Because they had their own different experiences. Same parentage. Different experiences. Are we American? Are we part of that mixed melting pot? Does the pain that we carry identify enough? Do we have enough story built here? Or are we not patriotic enough? Is that really where the core to American identity is? Because maybe I just need to be more ruckus about how proud I am about the American dream and the greatness of this constitutional institution. You like that? Can I throw that in there like that? I feel like that'll work. In order for us to really define, label, or determine what America is, or what an American identity is, you know what we really have to do? We have to undress the patriotic gloss from what it meant to be American. In a time when empires were growing and trying to colonize, and that we had individuals who were coming with revolutionary thoughts and burgeoning ideas of innovation, and we have to wake up to today. Today, in a country where majority of the country is melanated, majority of the United States of America is melanated. They got darkness. That wasn't the case. Them 13 colonies, they was nothing but Snow White, surrounded by beautiful, wonderful, native, indigenous, connected, loving folks. And yeah, most of them have now been wiped out, and a whole bunch of other folks immigrated here, and now we just have a whole different pot. And our stories vary so much. Many of them carry so much pain, frustration, anger, hurt. And right now we can decide at 250 how to create and craft an American identity that really does encompass all that is supposed to be the American dream. If not, is a revolution a brewing? Is there too much infighting? Is there too much you ain't? So here's my life lesson I'm gonna leave y'all. No more two pieces and a biscuit. Life lesson. Take your history, take your ancestry, take your culture, take all of that. Learn it, hold it, piece it together. Let it really show you the footsteps of your ancestors, the different hard paths they had to travel, the journey they had to take to have the blessed gift of you. Take the tears, take the traumas, bury them. Use them as fresh composting fuel for the seed that you're going to present, that you're going to nurture, nourish, tend to. Because there's a generation of young ones that are sitting right behind us. And if 250 years of age isn't old enough to have enough wisdom to give our kids hopes, glimmers, and dreams of beauty instead of a repetition of war, doesn't seem like we've grown much since we decided throwing tea bags in a harbor while dressed up as native indigenous was in the times. So anyway, this is Ramesses Satek, still walking through the different footsteps to identify what it is that I can say is my American identity. Reach out to the cat next to you. Ask them what their story is. And share. Share in their journey. At least for a couple cobblestone steps. Holla. Bless. And upon you be peace.